Let's make sure that everything's running. I'm waiting for the transcript. There we go.
There we go.
All right. I have a very crappy computer, so let's see. Minimize it. All right. I'm gonna close some of this actually. No, not that.
Did you get the attendance QR code?
Yes.
Awesome.
All right. Sorry about the delay. Hope everyone had a good week. Don't look at that. That's my homework.
Yeah. I'm actually in that same class.
All right. So this is the GitHub repo we're going to be using for the project. If you want to download it, well, I'll just do a quick spiel on inheritance versus composition. I apologize for the two that's already heard it. I hope you can handle it a little while longer. There's also a link in Discord if you need a clickable link. So it'll be in the announcements tab. But anyways, and this also is the attendance. If everyone wants to go and scan it, I'm going to do it too while I'm thinking about it. I haven't done that. Actually, is it scanning for everyone? Or do I need to mess with the lighting?
For me.
I'm going to change the lighting. The herd's been thinned. No, I think everyone's just slacking today.
Slack.
Except for us, we're the.
Yeah, the faithful few, as Professor O'Malley puts it.
There was only like 6 classrooms.
Something like that. Howdy doody. Don't forget your attendance, Miss Vice President. Oh, sorry, that's just in the way. I'm sorry. All right. Has everyone got in? Nobody? All right. I'm going to say everyone's in. You got it, Ariel? All right. All right. So today I'm talking about inheritance versus composition. It's basically some programming concepts that if you haven't taken any programming classes, it would be Computer Science 112. But today I'll be talking about it. So what is it exactly? Inheritance you can think of as an is a relationship, whereas composition is a has a relationship. I use an example of birds, for example. If you think of the bird family, toucans, you got toucans, lovebirds, and penguins. They're all a part of the bird family. I think birds are very beautiful. All birds can move. They can utilize their beak. They can make noises, eat, molt. But not all birds can fly, speak, or migrate. So that's an example of like what inheritance would look like programmatically. But what we'll be mostly talking about today is composition, which is has a relationship. You can think of it with the bird, back to the bird example. A bird has wings, it has a beak, and it has talons. It's not something that you would define a bird as in and of itself, but so much of it has this. So you might be wondering, why does it matter? Well, it helps a lot with readability, trying to break these things down into these two structures, helps reduce headaches, and it just makes it easier to modify changes. Because, for example, with inheritance, you can make a change with the parent. So that, let's say the bird class, it covers every single type of bird. You can make a change there. It'll trickle down to all the other bird objects, such as a penguin, lovebird, or a toucan. But you might be asking yourself, that's great and all, but what does this have to do with game dev? Well, inheritance, you can think of like a ranged enemy or a melee enemy. It's a type of enemy. Ranged weapon or a melee weapon is a type of weapon. Cowardly, brave enemies is their type of enemy behaviors. And on the other side, you have composition. An enemy player or object might have an HP or the stamina or even a mana system if it's in your game. And an enemy may also have some combat personalities that differs from gameplay from NPC to NPC, excuse me. Anyways, now that that's hopefully painted somewhat of a picture of what it looks like, I'd like to implement a health and damage system using composition in Unreal Engine today. So first thing we'll need to ask ourselves is, what will this look like? The health and damage system is very likely to have some of these functions: do damage, take damage, I don't know why I said that. That's the same thing. Damage response, healing, and death. Just to name a few. But yeah. So right now, let's get into Unreal. I'm going to stream my desktop. All right. So, all right. So this is the GitHub repo we'll be working with. I'm going to extract it. Oh, crap. Hold on. Sorry. There we go. Just increment by 1. All right. All right. So while that's loading, I'm going to talk about some things I kind of brushed over the first time I was presenting. First we're going to talk about enums, and the second we're going to talk about structs. So with enums, you can think of it as right here on the board. I wrote an example with a player state. They might be in a given state at a given time. For example, they may be in the idle state if they're not moving, or if they're walking, they're in the walk state. If they start running, they're in the run state, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the way a computer would be seeing this is, let me get the marker. It's at least in C++, it would be 0 index. Some languages, it might be 1 index, but the only thing a computer will be seeing is a number tied to this, starting at 0, going all the way to the end of the list. Excuse my handwriting. I hope you can read it. So an enum, it's the computer's only seeing this, but we as humans, this is a whole lot easier to debug than whatever this is. Because if you're in state number 3, you don't know what that is. But if you're in state number run, that's a whole lot easier to understand. Then on the flip side, we got these structs, which it's kind of like a class, but it's just a container for data. So a class, you might have like functions like getters and setters that would access these values. But with a struct, if it's information that you don't need to do much with it. It don't necessarily need to be protected or anything. You can just kind of keep it in this little container. I gave an example here of Fallout Special System, what it might look like. The struct of special, having strength, endurance, etc. But yeah, with that said, I apologize. So with those two examples, let's first actually, I'm going to make a folder. We're going to call it systems. And we're just going to make another folder. It's going to be the damage system, because that's what we're doing today, making a damage system. So first, we're going to make a couple enums. So this first one is going to be a damage type. So we know what type of attack is being done between 2 objects. And we're going to have another one. It's going to be, can everyone see the screen, by the way? Yes, I know how to do that this time, I think. I think I hit the wrong one. Yeah. All right. Let me know when.
I think about 5 times that.
Okay, we can do that. All right. So we have these. I did not name that. Let me rename that. And it's going to be E damage response. So we know how the hit object should respond to the attack. So first, let's start with the damage type.
It's the first
damage type, E damage type. The other one is E damage response. So you can think of this as various like damage types you might expect in a game. These are a couple I thought of. I actually thought of a couple more since the last time I presented. So first, it's very helpful with enums to have a default to. So we're going to have the first one set to default. And we're going to do the same thing with the damage response enum as well. Next, we have hit reaction. Wait, no, I'm reading off the wrong one. Ignore that. Next, it'll be a melee attack. followed by a projectile attack and an explosive and environmental. Now, so I came up with a couple more examples, but quite frankly, some of these examples, they kind of overlap with some of these. You might want to make a separate enum for them, but I'm going to just show you what it would look like. You could have other things like fire or water damage, for example, or ice. I guess ice would be better. And maybe like an electric attack. Well, there's just various damage types you can implement in your game just to paint a picture. Next, we have, let's see. Next, we have damage response. This is how a hit enemy will respond to a given attack. So again, it's good to have a default. It can either be none or default. I mean, it don't really matter. You can call it whatever you want, but none or default's pretty self-explanatory. Next, you have hit reactions, which you can kind of think of it kind of like, I guess like Counter-Strike, whenever it doesn't necessarily stop movement or anything, but it does slow you down. Next, you have a stagger. You can kind of, can't think of an example off the top of my head, but you know, just hit an enemy and they stagger. Next, you have a knockback, where you know it really just like flings them back. And then lastly, you have like a ragdoll, which the idea I had there was kind of like the force voice off of Skyrim. All right. Yeah. All right. Now we got those enums made. Let's make a struct. So we're going to make an struct object utilizing these two enums that we just made and a couple other values. That'll be S damage info. All right. So the first value, it's going to be a float. It's going to be the damage amount, because you need to that's the first thing you'll need to know is how much damage this attack did. Next, you're going to want to use one of the enums that we did, which will be the damage type. I named it as an E damage type. It's also good to have a good naming scheme because it's easier to search for things. So it might be helpful to have your objects abbreviated with a thing like E for enums and stuff like that. So, which one? That was weird. Are you using the same project from you might be getting like, yeah, might be getting the same. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to go so fast. So we got none, hit reaction. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay, default, melee, projectile, explosive, environmental, fire, ice, and electric. It doesn't have to necessarily be those specifically, but just whatever you'd like implemented in your game. All right. Does anyone have any other questions so far? Am I going too fast? I did this before, so. All right. So next we have the enum damage type. We're just going to call it damage type because no need for crazy names. Next we'll do the other one, which is the damage response. And we'll just call it damage response. Lastly, we're going to have 4 Boolean variables. They're going to be helpful to see like different things about the attack. So yeah. First one's going to be it can damage invincible. So you can think of this like in Dark Souls. I haven't played it, so I'm not 100% certain if this is a feature, but I'm fairly certain when you do dodge rolls, you're invincible. But there's some attacks that override this and attack it anyways. And so that's what this Boolean variable would be representing. Another example is, can this attack be blocked? And so if the player has their shield up and the enemy is attacking, will this attack go through or will it be blocked? Next, we have can be parried. Similar to the blocked, but you know, not every attack can be parried. So it might be helpful to have its own separate variable for that. And lastly, we have a should force interrupt. the best example I can think of would be like, trying to think of a game that does it, but let's say you're drinking a potion on the battlefield, or like you're using a med kit and you're getting shot at, and you want the game to force the player to stop doing that action so they can like get out. It might be helpful to have a variable for something like that. So, all right. Now that that's made, we've got the basics for the interface that we're going to make next. So we're going to make a blueprint interface, and this is all still in the same folder. And you'll notice the blueprint interface has a hollowed out icon versus the class, which has a full filled in color. That's because the interface, if you read the description, it says, name only, no implementation. So you can think of interfaces as a basic outline for what this object will look like. You can think of it like an abstract class with programming if you have a background with that. But we're going to make a blueprint interface going to BPI, and we're going to call it damageable. Might actually be too zoomed in. Let me, because I can't see the text. Let me.
It's not zoomed in.
All right. How's that look? Oh,
I think that did it.
yeah, maybe there's like an icon thing.
If you hover over it, it'll like
Yeah, we'll just do that. All right. So next we're gonna okay, the blueprint interface, if it'll open. All right. So you'll notice again, it says read only in the top right corner. That's because it's purely just an outline for what you plan to do with it. So we're going to have 5 functions in this one. The first one, we're going to call it, let's see, we're going to call it get max health. It's going to have it's not going to have any inputs, this function, but it will have an output of a float variable, which will be the value for the player's max health variable. Next, we'll have another function. Let's pull this out a little bit. It'll be get current health. And this will be so you can get the player's current health in proportion to their max health. So we'll just call this variable, have another output pin, and it'll be called current health. That's what it'll be returning. Next, we have get is dead, because it'll be helpful to know if the player or the whatever is using this system is dead. And since with the outputs down here in the bottom right, when the details panel.
Oh.
No, you're back. Yeah. So yeah, just to reiterate, it'll you'll have the functions over here on the left. It'll be where you're defining it, and then on the right here, you're defining the outline of what the inputs this function will use and the outputs this function will use. So this one's gonna have a Boolean variable, and it's gonna just be is dead. All right. And then we're going to make 2 heal functions. You may not need both of them in your game. It depends on how you wanted to use your heal function. But we're going to have a heal by percent followed by a heal by amount function. Now the heal by percent and the amount function is going to be the same. The only difference is the variable passed in for the percentile will be a value between 0 and 1 in the decimal form, whereas amount, it would be a fixed solid amount. You can think of it like a potion in Pokemon. So we're going to have an input for this variable. It'll be a float. We're going to call it heal percent. This is for the heal by percent function, by the way. And the output, it'll be a float as well, because it might be helpful to know what the new health is after setting or after healing the player. And so the heal by amount, we're going to do the same thing, except it'll be a heal amount followed by new health. All right. And lastly, this is the last function we need to implement for this, is a take damage function. And this is where the nifty little structure that we just made will come in handy. So it'll take an input of the damage struct. So S damage info, and it'll have we call it damage info. Pretty straightforward. And it'll have a Boolean output. It'll be just a flag, because it'll be helpful to know, did this attack actually land? So we'll call it was damaged. All right. So next, and this is the part I messed up on last Friday. So I figured out what I did wrong. Excuse me. Go ahead and compile this while I'm thinking about it. Go ahead and do that. Yeah, it'll be float for all of them. There's not really you probably could do integers, but I'm just doing floats. So yeah. And then, all right. I'm sorry? The get currents. Yeah, it'd just be everything only has like one output so far for what I have for the interface. Is there any particular functions y'all need me to go back to?
None of the getters have inputs, right?
Yeah, no, none of the get functions. They're all just returning values.
What is the heal by amount ones?
The heal by amount, it's the same as the heal by percent, except it'll be a fixed value, presumably in some range.
Okay, got it.
Or a fixed value. All right. And everyone good so far? All right. Next, we will be making a blueprint. And this is the part I messed up on. So you want to go to blueprint class, and you'll get this little pop-up. You want to go to the drop down for all class objects. We're looking for a particular type of blueprint actor, and it'll be an actor component. And you'll see when you hover over it why this fits exactly the thing I was trying to teach on. Actor component is a reusable component that can be added to any actor. Sorry. So you write, just do blueprint class. It'll be this drop down, and then you hit the all classes drop down, and it'll be actor. But yeah, when you hover over it, you can see it says it's a reusable component that can be added to any actor. This means that whatever system implements this it'll be composed of this system, which is what we're doing today. So I can't actually see. Oh, there we go. I can't see over this little record thing. I don't know where to dock it.
I know.
Is there there. We're gonna call this one BPC for blueprint class. BPC underscore damage system, because this is the system that will actually be used across our various blueprint objects. So now this one will be implementing a couple functions. So we'll be doing 3 functions, 1 macro, and we'll have 6 variables in it. Now a macro, if you haven't used it before in Unreal Engine, it's essentially like a function, but it serves only really to clean up your workspace. It's very helpful to just kind of see how everything lines up so you can see how your logic comes out. But first, we're going to have 3 functions. It'll be a heal by value, heal by percent, and lastly, it'll be the take damage function. The macro is going to be a can be damaged macro. We're going to be using it in the take damage function just so we can clean up the space. You're going to see why when we start making the take damage function, why that macro will be helpful. And lastly, we're going to have 6 variables. So 2 float variables, first one being health. And the next one will be the max health, followed by 4 Boolean variables. First one will be is invincible. So we'll see if the player's in an invincible state, such as they're dodging, or maybe they drank a potion or whatever. It gives them invincibility. Next, we'll have the is dead variable, just to see if the player has died from at any point. Might be helpful to know. Lastly, next is interruptible. This function it'll see if the player is in an interruptible state, so that the function we have in the structure can force the interrupt if it is set to true. Lastly, we have an is blocking state, just to see if the player's got his shield up or something like that. All right. So, oh, I almost forgot. And there's also going to be 3 event dispatchers. Now, events in Unreal, you can kind of think of it like sending out a signal on a radio station. It'll send out a signal, but the only people that'll receive that signal are people tuned into that channel. So we're going to have 3 signals we're going to make. It'll be an on death signal, which it'll alert anything that's listening for it that the object that's using this system has died. Next, we'll have an on blocked function. It'll alert that, hey, I'm blocking here. Don't do anything. And lastly, it'll be on damage response. Now, forgot one little part in the notes, I think. There's one thing I forgot in my notes. You'd think I would have had it together by now. So let me go back to the other project. Actually, hold on. There's one thing I forgot to write down in my notes, because there's 2 things we're going to be wanting to return on these on blocked and on damage response. So bear with me while I get that pulled up. So with the event dispatcher, on the on block function, you're going to want to add an input variable of the type can be parried. And on the damage response, you're going to add another input. It'll be, and again, the input button, it'll be right here in the top right. It says add new parameter, like under the details panel. So you want to add that. We'll call it damage response, and it'll be of type enum damage response. That way we know what it is. All right, that is the only thing I think I needed. Hold on. Yeah, so. Okay, can we stop that? Sorry. There we go. Okay, so damage on blocked, it'll be, what did I say the variable was? I'm sorry. Parried, can be parried.
Can be parried.
Yes. I have a terrible memory.
But
Damage response.
yeah,
All right. Thank you. And we're going to call that damage response. All right. That should be everything we need for the blueprint class. Go ahead and compile that. And while we're thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and add it to the player. So open up in your content drawer, go to the blueprint for the player object in your game. And we are going to, over here in the components panel, we're going to want to take the component that we just made, the damageable system, and we're going to want to add it to the, oh crap. Okay, yeah. We're going to want to add it to the player. And you'll notice it automatically goes down here. That's because that's where all of your component systems go. for in Unreal.
This thing, are you dragging?
The blueprint component, the one that looks like the little puzzle, the little jigsaw puzzle. You want to drag that to be a just drag it onto here. Should automatically apply itself. It'll be a child of the third person character. Next, while we're here, let's go ahead and implement the interface for so you instead of being in class defaults right here, we're going to want to go to class settings instead. This is where we can see the interfaces that have been implemented by this object. And it'll be helpful because this part right here is where a lot of the checking goes to see if this system implements this, excuse me, implements this function. So we're going to use the blueprint interface that we made. So the BPI, excuse me, mistype, BPI damageable. And you'll notice it when it gets applied, it gives these interfaces that we just made in the blueprint interface.
How'd you add that?
From class, instead of being in class defaults, you want to go to class settings. You scroll down until you get to this interfaces drop down.
Yep.
And you'll want to go to implemented interfaces, not inherited, because that'll be whatever the parent has. So you'll want to click add and then blueprint interface damageable. All right. What's it saying?
Blueprint BP third person character has a function or graph which conflicts with take damage interests.
Might be because are you are you using the same project from it might be okay. It might be if you still aren't able to get it, well, I'll look at it with you after and we can figure something out.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, it might be all.
All right. So let's see now. All right. So let's go back to the blueprint component. Right now, we're going to want to start implementing some of the functions in the system. So let's go to the heal by value. Let's start there because that one's it's similar to the percent function. So what we're going to do is wait a minute. I forgot to add something. So these functions, it's going to have some return values. I forgot to set those. The heal by value is going to have a return value of a float. It's going to be heal value, just like it is in the interface we did. And it'll have an output of new health, just like the interface. All right, I'm going to drag us out a little bit so we got a little play area. I'll take a drink of water real quick. All right. So we're going to want to add this value to the player's current health. So the health variable right here. And then we're going to want to take this value and verify that sum has not exceeded the player's max health. So we're going to want to take the max health variable and drag off of the output from the addition function, doing a clamp. We're going to look for the clamp float in parentheses because that's the data type we're clamping. And don't have to do anything to the minimum value because anything below 0 means they're dead. But the max health is going to be the maximum range for the clamp.
I'm lost.
Sorry, we're at.
Where function?
This is in the blueprint component damageable.
Oh, I forgot to.
Oh, damage.
add all that.
I mean, sorry, it is the damage system, blueprint component, BPC damage system.
Got to add.
Yeah. So this is the heal by value function in the blueprint component class. So to reiterate, just so we're on the same page, we're adding the heal value to the player's current health. I did not mean to do that. Stop. So there we go. All right. So now we're taking the output from these two sums. We're clamping it to a maximum value. within the range of the player's max health. And first, what we're going to want to do is disconnect that, because first we want to check that the player's not already dead in the first place, because there's no need to heal if they're already dead. So we're going to want to compare it with a not Boolean, because this means they are not dead. So we'll do that. And we're going to do a branch checking if this statement is true or false. If the player is not dead, which is true, we're going to continue and set the player's health. So we're going to drag and do a setter function call, setting it to this return value from the clamp only if true. And then we will be returning this new set variable. So just so everyone sees, that's too small. Can everyone see that? All right.
I think I got it.
Okay. And so the heal by percent function is very similar to the heal by value function. So we're just going to take all of this, copy and paste it. So Control C, go to the heal by percent, and just Control V. And you'll notice it also pastes the return node. If we go to the details panel, it's automatically it would. There we go. Thank you. It automatically applied the output pin for new health. So it's just a neat little trick, I guess. But we'll need to add an input pin of the heal percent value. Now, since this is going to be a value between 0 to 1, so it's going to be fractional, that means we're going to have to get some multiplication involved. So we're going to take the max health variable, which is the maximum range that the player's health can be at, and it's going to heal by multiplying these two together. So heal percent times max health. It'll give a value that is within that range. And now we're going to take that output to the variable for adding it to the player's health. And that's all it takes for the percentile heal. So from the heal by value. Yep. All right. So that's the heal by functions. Now it's going to start getting a little more complicated. So this function we're going to have is the take damage function we've got. It's going to be taking in a value of the structure of the damage response, damage type, excuse me. Yes, damage info. Okay, I got it the third time. So we're going to take this value. Actually, hold on. I misspelled it. Just realized that. It's going to drive me nuts. And also, it's going to have an output of the Boolean variable that we declared in the interface of was damaged. So this will be damage info. So I'm going to drag these out just a little bit so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to break this connection. So this struct. Do what now?
What's the hotkey?
I think it's Alt.
Left click.
Yeah, Alt left click. Yeah. But yeah, you can take these structures, you can break them open and get the all the data that you need out of it with a break call. And you'll notice it pops open everything that we made in our structure earlier. So I taught the president something. Let's go. All right. But before we go any further, it'll be helpful to do the macro function. So you go into the macro, it'll have an inputs and an outputs thing. It's a little different from the way other functions work, but because you'll notice by default, it doesn't have like the little hanging black part of the bubble. It's because they function just essentially a way of streamlining, as I mentioned before. Okay, and they also have a variable type that others don't have with execution pins. You'll notice it's a lot like the branch. So like for the branch, for example, it's very similar with like with that. But another thing is you can call it then, because it's if then. That's essentially what it's mimicking in terms of programming. So we can call it then. You'll notice it defaults to an empty space. So yeah. But the macro, it's also going to be getting two variables passed into it. Two Boolean variables to be specific. First one is going to be a should damage invincible, because we need to see if this attack will override a player's invincible state. And next we have a can be blocked Boolean, because we need to see if the attack can be blocked in the first place. And then for the output, we're going to have 3 execution pins, because this is where the neat thing about macros comes in, is it's helpful in cleaning up your workspace. So we're going to change these off to execution pins. First parameter, we're going to call it block damage. Second one, we're going to call no damage. And lastly, we're going to call the last one the full damage, because or do damage. You can do that as well, for example. But yeah. So first, we're going to want to check if make sure that the player is, if the attack should damage an invincible player, or the player isn't invincible in the first place, because there's no need to check. So do a not. So this, if you drag off a Boolean and just type in or and then bool, it'll be that function right here. Yeah. So we're just going to clean this up. Also, if you're like me, you're a little OCD, you like your pins all lined up, you can hit Q and they'll line up all the selected pins. So we're going to take this is not invincible variable and pass that into the OR function. Next, we have another Boolean. It'll be the is dead. So if the player is not dead, or if the character is not dead, excuse me, keep getting those mixed up. I'm going to go in. And we're going to take that and pair it with an and Boolean gate. So we'll take the or pin from the can damage invincible or is not invincible, and the player is not already dead. If all of those conditions check out, then we'll do the first part of this branch that we got here. Excuse me. By the way, you want to add a branch. If I can get the thing to work. All right. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. And another thing, you can select all the nodes that you want, right click and add a comment. It's very helpful if you want to keep track of your code, because it makes it a little easier to come back to. We're going to call this comment check if this is in the can be damaged macro. We're still in. Right now, I haven't quite got there just yet. Yeah, sorry. I'm just kind of cleaning up while I go, so that it check if the player is invincible or dead with this little function. You can also, if you move this, it'll also move all the variables inside of it. It's very helpful, just keeping the area workspace clean. So if the player is dead or is not dead, hold on. Oh, wait a minute. I got these backwards. I'm going to switch these two output pins. And instead of just retyping it, I can just drag and reposition it here. So we'll take this false pin into the no damage variable, because that means player's already dead or invincible. But on the other side, we have to check using the can be blocked. I'm going to drag this down here. I can add a reroute node. It's helpful for cleaning up your space. So I'm going to drag this up here. Next, we're going to take the is blocked function. I'm sorry, that should not be is blocked. That needs to be is blocking. The verb, not the past tense. All right, we're going to get that. Pass these two variables right here into an AND gate. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up. Hit Q. Now I'm going to drag this out here. And have another branch variable coming out outside of the true statement on this first branch here. So I'm gonna if true. Now it's going to check if the player is blocking or the attack can be blocked in the first place. If the attack can't be blocked, do damage, do full damage. But if the attack can't be blocked, go ahead and just let that be known. So this is what the macro should look like. Is there any particular part y'all need me to look at, or y'all? Has everyone got the macro so far? Yeah, this is roughly what it should look like. I know it's kind of hard to read, but yeah, hold on. I wish I had my second monitor right now. Do what now? I'm sorry. Yeah, so the yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. So the first branch is we're checking if the player is invincible or dead. If they are not, it just let me actually clean this up a little bit. You can double click on a wire and you'll add a node for cleaning up. But so if the player is dead or invincible, it'll do no damage. Otherwise, now we got to check, is the player blocked? Can the attack be blocked? And is the player blocking? So if both of these are true, only then will it block the damage. Otherwise, it'll do full damage. Is everyone good so far? All right. All right. So now that we got the macro made, we can now make the attack function, or the take damage function, excuse me. And this is where it's going to be really handy having this macro. So we're going to want to drag this macro into the workspace. And you'll notice it has all the variables that we just made. And we're going to want to take and pass in the variables from the structure that are relevant to the macro. So the can damage invincible and the can be blocked variables. That's what we're going to pass in there. Next, we take the execution pin from the take damage function. And we'll want to first drag off here and implement the block damage function. But this is where the event dispatchers will come in handy. So what we're going to do is on blocked, drag the call here and call it. And you'll notice it has all these variables. So we'll block the damage. And we're going to want to see if this attack can be parried. So we're going to want to take the can be parried variable from the struct that we made. Let's add a reroute node to make it look cleaner. And can't see if it can be parried. So once it gets to this point, we know that the attack has been blocked and might be able to be parried. So right now, there's not really anything for the tutorial that I've got for that so far, but I'm just going to say block, just so we can see on the screen when this gets called. And we're going to have a return node. Speaking of which, actually it's right here. So we're going to want to return that there was no damage done. So it'll be set to false. And we'll also want to take from this no damage pin and drag it into the same output pin because it's the same output. The only difference is one of them was blocked. The other one was, it just did no damage for one reason or another. So I'm going to add that there. Now, lastly, we got the full damage, which we're going to set. Actually, I'm going to set the health variable for the player. Set it to the and we're going to want to take the amount value for the damage off of the structure we made, and paired with the health variable. So let's go ahead and grab that. Let's get the health variable of the player, subtract from it the amount of the attack damage. So let's go ahead and clean that up a little bit. All right, we're going to take this output and set it for the player's new health variable. Yeah. All right. Next, since we've got this variable set to a value from the attack, we now need to make sure that the player survived or did not survive the attack. So we're going to add, we're going to have this value being set, the is dead variable that is. Let's see, yeah. So we're going to, if the value of the player's health is now less than or equal to 0. So let's do a less than or equal to. And it's going to be just default to 0 because that's the value we're comparing against. And I'm going to do a branch here, taking the outcome from this less than or equal to statement. If this is true that the player's health is less than 0, that means that the player's dead. So let's drag the true into the setter, set the player's dead state to true. And since this player's dead, we now need to alert anybody that's listening to the fact that this character has died. So we'll take it from the setter and call the onDeath function. And we'll add another return node. So let's go ahead and go to this one and just hit Control-C, Control-V. So we got it. And return true for the was damage variable. Now we need to do a separate check for if the player survived from this attack. We'll need to check how we'll need to compare some variables. That's what I'm trying to say. So first, we're going to want to go back to the structure that we got here and drag the last Boolean variable we have not used. Let's go ahead and make a reroute node here so I can come back to it. And we'll also want to take the damage response enum that we got. So let's go ahead and drag it here as well. Add another reroute node. So we're going to do a check with the interruptible variable to see if the player is in an interruptible state. Do an OR gate, or Boolean, of the interruptible variable that is right here in our variables section is interruptible or should force interrupt. So now we'll want to do a branch following this false statement, let's see, to determine if the player should respond to this attack. So we're going to want, if it is true that that the player is in an interruptible state or the attack should force an interrupt, we'll want to call the damage response function. And it's looking for a damage response to pass in. We'll take this one that we got here that I dragged out there. And this call on damage response, yeah, we'll want to call that off the true branch. And then we're going to want, so we need it's good practice for your functions to always return from every possible scenario. So we're going to take this and also drag it into the return node. Yeah. So it should look a lot like this. Is there any particular part of the take damage function you need me to go back to? We have not. I haven't got any. Yeah, no. That can be something that you can implement on with just determining like just different types for your game. But The enum, we passed it into the call function on the on damage response. We pass it into.
Mine like off when I tried to put it in there. I think it still works.
What is it?
It's like when I brought the damage response to the where it goes into the call damage response. It like breaks off into it.
Oh, that's weird.
Getter for some reason.
That is weird.
But I think it works the same.
Yeah, we'll see. That is a great question. Oh, it passes directly into the call on blocked. So if you implement parry, or if you want it to be where only certain enemies or the player in a certain state can parry, so that. Okay, yeah. So on these event dispatchers, you want to on the on blocked add an input of can be parried. Mm-hmm. All right. We'll clean this up a little bit. So that should be everything from the blueprint component. So now we're going to do just a little bit of cleaning up with the workspace, because there's some things we'll need to test. We'll need to compare this against an enemy and a player object, but we only have a player object in the game. So what we're going to do, we're going to make 2 folders. First one will be, hold on, I put that in the wrong folder. Excuse me. So in the content folder, we're going to add 1 folder. It'll be player. We're going to add another folder. It'll be the enemies. We're going to take the third-person blueprint. So in the third-person folder, we're going to right-click and duplicate it. We're going to name the duplicate BP underscore enemy. And we're going to rename the BP third-person character. We're going to name it BP player. Now, I already changed it, but it'll be very helpful just to go ahead and check it. So let's go to the game mode type for this. Open that up. It should be in the same folder as your character. Yeah, right-click on the object and click duplicate. We're not making a child because the enemy is going to be separate from the player object. So we're going to be duplicating it. First, the duplicate will be named the enemy type. And it's going to be the base class. So this is what everything else will derive from. And the same for the player. But you'll want to open this BP game mode object. That should be in the same folder as what you found that in. And you'll want to, you'll want to check that the default pawn class is set to the BP player. Because this is, when you go into the world, you'll notice, hold on. You'll notice there's no player object. But when you open the player object, it has a character mesh. So why is that not in the world? That's because it spawns in the player at the game mode. Ooh. At the game mode position. And so we need to check that the game mode has it set to where the value that it spawns will be the player. So next we have.
That was the only thing you need to check with default pawn class?
Yeah.
Okay.
It should by default, as long as the duplicated object is the enemy, but it's still good practice to check. And since I should have already duplicated, but I'm going to do some things to the enemy that we duplicated. Well, first off, I forgot to move it. So let's move the player to the player folder, and we'll move the enemy to the enemies folder. Pretty straightforward. But for the enemy, it's got some stuff on it that we don't need. That was defaulted for the player character. We don't need the camera object or the follow camera or the camera boom or the follow camera. So let's delete those. Additionally, we don't need some of the functions that was in here by default. Sorry to delete all your hard work, Phil, but we don't need your stamina system. We don't need the camera input. And let's see.
And enemies.
Yes, this is in the BP enemy. And we don't need any of this stuff, but we will need the event for the input mapping left to default. I believe. So all the variables coming out from the comment, but leave the event call. So everything that it's attached to. Yep. All right. So now
Can you remove it?
do what now? Yeah, because this is it'll be how the yeah, I think, which they may not actually need it because I think it's based on controller inputs, but we'll just leave it just in case. So now it's time to implement the functions from the blueprint component. So you'll remember I said earlier that you can think of the events in Unreal kind of like a radio station. Only anything that's tuned to that frequency will get the events, but if it's not tuned to it, it won't hear it. So this is where we're going to start doing just that. We're going to go in the construction script right here, because this is essentially the constructor like it is in C++. And we're going to want to do 3 event calls. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to want to bind these events so that, actually first, I'm sorry. Let's go back to the event graph. Let's make 3 custom functions. We're going to make a custom event for on. This is in the, it'll be on this, so on the left,
Right there.
yeah, the blueprints event graph. So this is a custom event. We're going to call it enemy death or on enemy death. Actually, just enemy death. That'll be good. Next, we'll have a custom function of enemy locked. And you'll notice these events I'm doing are the same as the events we declared in the blueprint component. We'll do one more, and it's going to be a custom event of damage response. Now, these event functions, they need to match the function from the blueprint component. So they're going to be also expecting input values. Let me bring up if your detail panel is closed like mine, you go to Windows, click on details. But for this, we're going to want to add an input of, and it's going to be the value we had in the blueprint component of can be parried. And secondly, we'll have on the damage response, we'll have another input pin. It'll be the enum variable that we made a while back of the damage response. So now that all these are made, let's go back to the construction script this time. Do what we just leave it as default because it's this in the blueprint component that we made. It's also doesn't have an input or output. Oh, I forgot to rename it. Thank you. The damage response. Enum damage response. That's what it'll be expecting. Because you need the functions to line up so that because it's expecting certain parameters to be called. Because you'll see it when we do it with the construction script. So just drag off of the construction script pin, bind event, and you'll notice there's a bunch of these popping up, but there's not ones that we need. This is where this comes in. We're going to want to drag this into the field, and we're going to want to bind these events. So bind event, and you'll notice now we've got the functions that we made in our library for the component. So we'll first do the on death, drag into it, and we'll do a custom event or create event. I'm sorry, not a custom event. There's a difference. And we're going to want to call the death function that we made, or the enemy death function. It's essentially binding the on death function and kind of just making a binding to the enemy death object. We're going to do that the same thing with the other two. So bind on damage response. I'm going to drag off of it, make an event, and we're going to do on damage response. So, and hold on. Yeah, you'll notice in the it has these parentheses where it's empty. That's because these are the parameters being passed into it. And you'll notice this one has the variables in it because this is the variables being passed into this function. We're going to do it one more time. Do bind event, And it's going to be, which one have I not done yet? It's the ball and blocked, I think. Yeah. All right. And we're going to want to drag off of this last one, create an event, and it'll be enemy blocked. Wait, yeah, enemy blocked. Let's clean this up just a little bit. Add some reroute nodes. Yes, or whatever the custom function you called in your BP enemy in the event graph. Okay.
Oh, wait, it's not showing me.
Yeah, are you dragging, are you buying it? Because you have to drag it off the BPC. Is that what you're, is it, or where? Okay, so let's think this through. Oh, wait a minute, I bet I know what it is. Did you compile your enemy when you were done? It might be it. Because it needs to refresh on both sides. Let me know if that fixes it.
That damage response blocked. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
What was the event that goes with the unblocked trade event?
What
What's the function? What's the function?
I think I called it enemy blocked, whichever you
Oh,
named it.
okay.
Yeah.
That's the one that's.
Yeah. Did your I don't know it. Okay. Did you get it?
Paint all three of these together.
Yeah, it's essentially it's the order in which the object is constructed. With like programming, I don't know if y'all have a programming background or not, but it's got to like it does some of this stuff already for you in Unreal, but if you take a programming course, they might have you set certain variables, and in this instance, we're needing to set the event variables and have them bound to the enemy object. All right. Everyone good? Or does anyone need me to repeat anything? Or all right. So we're going to now we're going to implement some of the interface functions. So let's go into the take damage function. And see. This is sorry. In the blueprint under the interfaces tab, we're going to start with the take damage. And you'll notice it has all the parameters that we declared in our blueprint interface. We're going to want to drag this damage system into the area because we need to interact with the blueprint component we just made. So we're going to be calling the take damage function that's in the in this library, and you'll notice the target's the blueprint component damage system.
Damage. I think I actually wrote something because it dumped my variable to a byte instead of what is it supposed to be? In the take damage, the very first purple box, that damage info.
Yeah.
That is a structure. Okay. Where am I going to fix that?
That should be in your blueprint interface in the take damage.
Blueprint interface for.
BPI _ damageable. I think that's what the naming scheme I use. Yeah. Yeah. You'll want to take the input pin. It'll be this of type damage info or of name damage info of type S damage info. Have you tried compiling it? And if that doesn't fix it, I'll try and help you with it after.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to want to take the parameter from this take damage info and pass it directly in. Pretty straightforward at this point. We're just kind of making sure all of the functions are integrated. And we're just plugging and playing with everything that we've made. So next, we're going to want to implement we're going to want to implement the heal by amount, I believe. And we're going to want to call heal by amount. Wait a minute, that ain't right. Heal by value. I think that's what I actually named in the blueprint component. So we're going to drag this up here. Pass that in. And most of this is going to look pretty much the same visually because it's all more or less doing the same thing. We've already done the hard part of the logic. Now the easy part is just getting everything integrated.
Where did you go to get to that?
In the so in the blueprint,
Yeah.
go scroll down to the interfaces tab, and we're just going item by item. Right.
Okay,
Oh, I might know what the problem is then. Go to your class. So it might be so the class settings, and you want to go to the wait a minute. Yeah, that should be it. So the interface isn't there, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So you want to go to the class settings, scroll down to interfaces, and add VPI damageable.
Oh, is this the error that I was having earlier?
Might have been.
Yes. See? Everything that I have. This is the enemy class settings. VPI damageable.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I have two of them for some reason, and not of them working. Alright, we can come back to that later.
All right.
You go back to heal by amount.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be doing the same thing here. So what you're going to be doing is doing this, dragging off heal by. In this instance, it'll be %, but for the heal by value, you're just going to do calling the heal by value function.
I did it.
I'm going to drag into the heal function for the percentage, return the new health variable. And that's, like I said, a lot of this is just kind of plugging and playing. Next, we have the get is dead function. So we're going to want to find out from this system if is dead. So we're going to get this variable and return that. Next, it's going to do the same thing for this. It helps. Clean these up. Drag in there. And do the same thing with the max health. So it's doing the same thing, just passing in the appropriate variables. Max health. We're doing the get, not the get in parentheses message. You're wanting just the value. You're not needing any of the output nodes. So, all right. Now that that is implemented, we can now see, okay, yeah. This should be set up now to where when the player attacks, the enemy will take damage. So you just check it. The variable should be called health, I think is what I had it named in my my tutorial so far.
I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Can you jump? I got it fixed. Can you jump back to? Did you do all of them? Heal by amount %, get it dead. Did I miss all those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to go piece by piece, and for each single one, you're dragging this component into the field, doing a get function, and you're just passing in the appropriate variable. Since all the interfaces are named the same, it should be as simple as just dragging off of this and calling the function of the same name. So like this one I had dragged off and did take damage. And you'll notice it's the blueprint component damage system. You're going to be doing that for all 6 of these pretty much. And then just passing in the appropriate variables to make sure everything matches. Yeah. So, but yeah, in its current state, it should be set up to where now an enemy object should take damage from anything that does damage. So what we're going to do, just to test, because there's a chance I did something wrong, we're going to want to go into the player event graph and add an event check for player mouse. This isn't an efficient way or a correct way of doing this. This is just going to be for debug purposes. It's ideal to kind of have your input events set into a object. But for right now, we just going to do a left click. So left mouse button is what the event's actually called. I'm going to take off of that. And when on the event that the key of the left mouse button is pressed, we're going to want to do a hit. We're going to want to cast out a hitbox. So let's do a sphere trace. Now there's multiple ones that'll pop up, you'll notice, but we're specifically comparing this against objects in the in the Unreal Engine. There's two specific functions here that are going to be what we need. And you'll notice one of them is labeled multi, whereas another one is just sphere trace. It'll be helpful to ask yourself if you want your attack to just target one enemy or multiple enemies. Today we're just going to be doing a single attack because there's a little bit more debugging that's got to go into the multi-sphere trace for objects. So for today, we're just going to do just the singular trace for objects. And we're going to want to cast out this hitbox starting at the location of the player. So we're going to want to get actor, if I can spell, get actor location. This variable is going to be the start position. Next, we're going to want to get actor forward vector. This is the direction that the player is looking. So we need to cast out in that direction. So what we're going to want to do is take this vector, the 3D vector, and multiply it by how far we want it to cast out. And you'll notice it's defaults to a 3 variable coordinate system. That's not what we need right now. So what we're going to do is right click on this second variable, and we're going to pin this, take this, scroll down here to the pin conversions, and take it from vector type to float type. So now we want, and this will be how many units we want this to cast out. I'm just going to do 300 because that's a nice large number where you can see the difference. So we're going to take this and add it to the current actor's location. So add it, take these two values, and this will be the end position. Hold on. Lastly, we have the radius of the sphere. You can tweak with it as much as you like. I will just do 50 for now. And it'll also be checking for what object you want to search for that you're colliding with. And since it's a player object, that'll be, or a blueprint pawn rather, you're going to drag off of this and hold on, make array. Just type in make array and it should pop up. And you'll notice it does an enum variable just like the ones we've been messing with so far. The specific variable we're going to want to search for is a pawn type, because that is what all actors in Unreal, the type they should be. And so it's going to check that this is the variable that it's colliding with and not anything else. So lastly, we're going to have just for debug purposes, we're going to have for a duration on the draw debug type. And then the draw time, we're just going to leave defaulted at 5 seconds. Next, we're going to want to check if it hit. So we'll do a branch variable. We're not going to do anything with the false statement because it's not, that means that it collided with something that's not relevant. But we're also going to take this out hit, and you'll notice it's also dark blue, just like the struct we've been doing. So we can take it, break it open, and you'll notice this one has a whole lot more variables in it than what we've been dealing with. The only variables that we need, though, is the location. This is the location of where the collision occurred. And so let's add a reroute node so it's easier to find. And we're going to see what actor we collided with. So we're going to drag off of that and add another reroute node. So we're going to want to then, we're going to want to check if the actor that it collided with is using a damage system, because if it's not using it, then it doesn't need to worry about it. But so we're going to check if, so we're going to call the take damage function. You'll notice it says in parentheses. This is because it's broadcasting a message saying, checking if this interface, and you'll notice it says target is BPI damageable. That's because it's checking if, and that's if that class object implemented it. That's why I said it's important to have these class settings set up to where the implemented interfaces has BPI damageable. So if the it hits something, we also have to pass in a damage info variable. Now, the easiest thing to do would be pass in the struct from the equip. It'd be helpful to have like in the game, have like an equipped weapon variable, drag off of that to see what the damage info would look like. But for now, just for debug purposes, we're gonna drag off of this, and we're just gonna make our own little custom variable. We don't really need any of these for now, because like I said, we're just trying to debug right now. We're just going to do a damage amount of 50. That should be a pretty noticeable. Actually, let's do 25. Next, we'll do.
What's the total health at?
Do what now?
What's it?
Yeah, I forgot. I think I forgot to actually implement that. That would be here, I believe, in the. Wait, where'd it go? In the blueprint component, you want to set the default variables to whatever. Let's do 50. That should be enough to notice a difference. Same for, you're going to set the same value for your max health. This will be the same value used across all values for now. There is a way of implementing it where I think you just expose these variables and then just expose it on spawn. But right now we're not going to worry about that and just leave it at 50 just to see if the system's working. Where am I? We're going to want to go to the player object, back to the player object we were in, and do another branch variable off of this was damage node. So branch, and do a, just to see it, to verify that it's working, we're going to do a spawn emitter at location. And at the location it spawns at will be the location of the collision. So we're, if it, there we go. And we'll just do an wait. Okay. So I haven't imported the starter content. I'm not going to do that right now just because it might take some time. If you wanted to, you go to this green arrow or green plus sign, sorry, and add feature or content pack. You want to go to this content tab and click the starter content. In there, it should have like an emitter where it's like a little explosion effect, and you can do it just if you wanted to. But we're just going to actually delete these because they were not really going to be able to do anything with that. So it should be in a testable. Let's try it out. Oh wait, I forgot that. Just the branch statement I had here and the spawn emitter function.
Oh, just delete that.
Yeah. I forgot to add an enemy to the world. So let's go back to the enemies folder. Just drag it right here. Hold on. Let's rotate it so it's looking at the player. All right. So you'll notice first off it's doing the hitbox. It's actually casting it where the player is looking. So what we're going to do is we're going to run up to the enemy and verify that. So their health should be at 25 now. And let's see, hold on. That was actually the stamina. I think Phil didn't get to finish that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we noticed that it didn't print out that the enemy died.
Oh, real quick, where you're adding the start and end location, the sphere trace.
Yeah.
How do you change the bottom one to a
wait? If you right click it, you can change it in this pin conversion. Change that to a Actually, sorry, it'll be float. It's not going to show up for me because I've already done it, but it'll be float.
Double precision?
I did single. It shouldn't. You don't really need. You dealing with whole numbers anyways.
Set it.
I did 300. Do what now?
Where should it tell you like the hit for the
Yeah, yeah. No, that's actually what I'm gonna have to debug a little bit because it should be printing it out. Yeah, so it's we're gonna have to see because I think I might have missed a step because it should be doing it. So let's go to the. See, take damage is set. Oh, wait a minute. I bet I know what it is. Okay, I forgot to implement the BPI in the player object. So the enemy's up and listening, but the player is not sending out any information. So we're going to do the exact same thing we did with the enemy. So we're just going to drag off of these and set the call each appropriate function. So take damage, not that one.
Oh,
Take damage.
Yeah.
Is it giving you trouble? I certainly understand, Gur. Was it the print statement or?
No, like when it errors out, it puts an error message in the bottom right hand corner and then disappears after like 5 seconds. I'm fully read with it.
I think it might have like a log if it's like debugging or not debug, but like if it's like improper variables or something like that, like memory leaks and whatnot. You're gonna want to be doing the call function, so heal, but so specifically the call function, yes, not the BPI damageable, because that would be calling itself. It would more or less be doing some it enter an infinite loop essentially. So we're gonna want to drag that in here for these variables.
You have to go to the class settings, implement interfaces, right?
Yeah, class settings, interfaces, just to reiterate one last time, or go to implemented interfaces, add BPI damageable. Now, I think I'd be willing to bet your specific error has to do with, yeah, it's probably got some, yeah. Yeah. All right. And so next we're going to do heal by percent. But yeah, if y'all want to go ahead and like do what I'm doing for this. Okay. All right. Mr. Show Off over here. All right. Sorry I'm taking so long. So next we're going to be getting is dead. I see what you mean, Phil. It's doing it for me now. I think you said it was doing this for you. Whereas it shouldn't be doing that. Why is it doing that?
So just pulling the BPC.
Oh, frick, you're right, dude. All right, we're going to get the health variable. And sorry about that. And we're going to get the max health.
And then get that supposed to be from anything or like,
Yeah, you'll be doing the exact same ways you did with the blueprint enemy. You're going to be dragging this into the field, and then dragging and getting the isDead variable, dragging that into the return node. All right. Now that all 6 of those functions are implemented, now it should be doing damage. So let's go ahead and test that out. I'm going to go run over here. Hold on. Oh, okay. I know the problem this time. We didn't have any print statements.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the enemy. On death, let's just do a print statement. Just call it dead. Pretty straightforward. Do another print statement while we're here and do the other ones. Locked. This is the blueprint enemy. I'm going. I kind of sped through it again. It's going to be damage response because now the enemy should be dead, but we don't know because I haven't done any print statements. That's my bad. All right. All right. Now, for the third time, this should do it. All right. See, now it says dead. All right. Now we need to do the same thing for the enemy to us. So what we're going to do is go to, well, actually, while we're here in the enemy, let's do, and this is where this kind of comes in handy. We're going to drag off of,
But you said
yes, because we're going to make we're just going to have like a look for a little debug purposes. We're going to have him do, just cast out a attack. This is this receive input chain. Actually, let's do a event begin play. Instead of doing this, let's delete that. We're going to check for on begin play. So this means when the game starts running, it's going to just start doing this event. So the first thing we're going to do is do a timer.
When's the on begin play called?
Yeah, it's literally just event begin play.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to do a set a timer. And we'll do this, I guess. I'm going to set it to looping, and it's going to loop every, let's say 5 seconds. Actually, that's going to take a little while. Let's do 2 seconds. And once this timer is over, let's actually create a custom event. This will be enemy attack. And it's going to so we can drag off of this event variable, and we'll create an event, and we're going to call the enemy attack. So now every 2 seconds, it's going to call the enemy attack function. Sorry. Okay. Let me back up just a little bit. So we're in the, just to reiterate, in the blueprint enemy, we're going to want to doing an event. This, if you drag off of this and click create event, it'll pop this up. It's just like in the construction for the enemy where it was binding an event. So that's what it's essentially doing is it's going to call this event. So you're going to want to set it to enemy attack. All right. So that means, just to reiterate, every 2 seconds, it's going to call this event, which calls this event. Yeah. So we're going to do the same thing we did with the player. In fact, let's just streamline this. Let's make it easy for ourselves. Let's go and copy and paste the entire attack, but excluding the left mouse event. This is in the blueprint player. You're going
where?
wherever you have your the event for your left click attack. That's where I had it. Yeah. So you're going to want to select, since it's the same exact logic, just copy it and just paste it in here. And attach it. Now, let's make it a little easier to see what we're doing. Also, I'm going to do a draw time of 1 second, just so it doesn't the other one. We're going to set it to on collide. It'll be purple. And it's these two. So in the sphere trace for objects, you can change the trace colors for debugging.
Oh,
Yeah, and I'm just changing them to make them different from the player. We're going to do that. Now, let's compile that and play. And, yep, see? Now, also, one thing I forgot to mention, that you'll see that it's red, and it'll turn green when it collides. It'll be the same thing for the enemy, except it'll be the other value. So it'll be, see how it's green. But you'll notice, and yeah, I just realized I forgot to actually I forgot to do that here as well. So for the, where did I put it? Is this the player? Yeah. Hold on. I can't see. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's actually something we're going to need to do. Is so in the event graph, we're going to need to do the same thing we did with the enemy. Let's create 3 events, custom events. It'll be on player death. This is in the blueprint player. 3 custom events on player death, on player blocked, and event custom on player damage response. And again, these 2 functions, they are expecting the on player blocked is expecting a Boolean of can be parried. And the on player damage response, it's expecting an enum of type damage response. And we're going to call it damage response. And while we're here, so I don't do the same mistake again, we're going to do a print statement. Dead, just to check that we're dead, or notify. Print blocked. And one more.
Should that variable be called can be parried or can be blocked?
Can be parried because you're now checking if the player because you'll need to set a timer for the parry window, and then also check if it can be parried in the first place if the player like hits the button in that time frame. That's essentially what it's checking.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, and now we need to tie the blueprint component functions to the player function. So let's go back to the construction script. We're going to do the same thing we did with the enemy. So in fact, let's just again, let's make it simple. So the construction script, copy paste, just bam. Now you notice it did give an error. That's because there is no enemy death function in the blueprint player. So we'll need to, same for these other ones. We'll need to go and change these to the appropriate ones on player death, on player damage response, and on player blocked. I don't know. I couldn't find that. All right. So now,
Can you scroll, can you zoom back anything so it's?
yeah, sorry. Let me close this. So yeah, you're going to want to check. So the check, move my mouse, checking for the on player death, tying that to the on death event, tying the on player damage response event to the damage response event. Did you drag off of the blueprint component?
That.
Yeah. Yeah. That tripped me up earlier too. So
Oh, wait.
yes. But you can copy and paste from your enemy because it's the exact same logic.
We'll check it later.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that. All right. So now it should be, now the player can be enter the dead state. You'll see, bam, dead. All right. So that means both systems are now working and now everything's communicating like it should be. But this is, we are already at an hour and a half. If y'all want, I can, for the next 20 minutes, try to make it more, like add some stuff. But if y'all also want to call it quits, I understand. How's everybody feeling so far?
Oh. How do you make the enemy visible again?
Enemy visible.
Or how do you like? It's not in there.
Oh yeah, you just go from the content drawer and just drag it into
Drag
the
it.
world. Yeah. Actually, yeah. Let's go ahead and take this. Is there any questions? Does anyone have any questions? All right.
I'm gonna use the brain.
All right. So Y'all want to keep going? Yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down? All right, yeah. All right, it's probably a good stopping point anyways. Yeah, we'll stop there. All right. All right. Let's,
Yeah, could you push the changes when you get minutes or something like that?
yeah. All right. Thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it. I really do. Y'all, I hope y'all have a good day. Hope y'all have a good weekend and a good week.